So, have you noticed the internet getting, well, just weirder lately? Like a flood of really strange images, bizarre videos, and articles that just don't make any sense? Well, there's actually a name for this whole phenomenon, and today we're diving into the strange new world of AI slop.
It probably starts with something like this. You're just scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and then you see it. An image of Jesus Christ, but he's made entirely out of shrimp. Or maybe you've seen the one where he's DJing a rave. It's weird, right? It's memorable, and it is popping up absolutely everywhere. This, right here, is the face of a whole new kind of digital junk.
Right, so what do you even call this flood of bizarre content? The term that's really started to stick is AI slop. And honestly, it's a pretty perfect name for the internet's new AI-powered junk drawer.
So here's the deal. AI slop is basically high-volume, low-quality stuff made with generative AI. The key here is that it totally lacks any real effort or meaning. It's designed for one thing and one thing only, to get you to click, to like, or to share. The absolute easiest way to think about it, it's just like spam, but supercharged by artificial intelligence.
But here's a really interesting take on all this. An art curator named Francesco Di Isa argues that if you look back, most of what humans have ever created could also be called slop. The great art we all remember is just, as he puts it, the surviving tip of an immense iceberg of stuff that was just forgotten or boring. It kind of puts this whole AI thing in a different light, right? Okay, so that leads to the big question. If it's basically junk, why is it completely taking over our feeds? Let's take a look under the hood at the engine that's churning all of this out. It really just boils down to two things: the ability to create content at a scale that's just not humanly possible, and some seriously powerful financial incentives to do it. And wait till you see the numbers. All right, first up, the scale. On YouTube alone, channels that are dedicated to making AI slop have racked up over 63 billion views. And no, that's not a typo. 63 billion. I mean, the sheer volume is it's hard to even wrap your head around. And of course, all those billions of views, they translate directly into cash. It's estimated these channels are pulling in around $117 million in ad revenue every single year. I mean, with that kind of money on the table, you can bet people are going to find a way to get a piece of it. But look, the platforms are fighting back. In just one recent quarter, YouTube terminated 7.45 million channels for breaking its rules. That number by itself just shows you the insane scale of the problem they're up against. So you've got this fundamental conflict, right? On one side, you've got the slob creators. Their goal is simple: make the most engaging thing you can with the least amount of effort so you can make the most money. But on the other side, platforms like YouTube are seeing their sites get flooded with all this low-effort, inauthentic content that pushes out to the actual human creators we all want to see.
All right, so now we know what this stuff is and why it's everywhere. Let's take a little tour of the slopaverse, because I guarantee you've seen this stuff, even if you didn't have a name for it.
Okay, first stop, your social feed. It's not just shrimp Jesus. It's those AI-generated images of, say, an injured soldier holding a sign that says, "Today's my birthday, can I please get a like?" It's all designed for one thing: to guilt you into an emotional reaction, a like, a share.
And honestly, this is where it gets a little more troubling: the kids' content. We're talking about these nonsensical videos full of flashing colors that are algorithmically generated just to capture a kid's attention. Think weird, oddly proportioned horses hatching out of eggs just over and over again. And look, it's not just some random people doing this. Even major brands are getting it wrong. Coca-Cola actually released an AI-generated ad that had its own logo misspelled as Coca-Cola. When a brand that big is making a mistake like that, you know this stuff is absolutely everywhere.
Okay, and this is where the digital world literally smacks right into the real one. You might have heard about the infamous Willie's Chocolate experience in Scotland. They use these fantastical, gorgeous AI images to sell tickets. But when families showed up expecting a magical wonderland, they found a nearly empty warehouse. It's just a perfect and kind of sad example of AI slop having real-world consequences.
Of course, the stakes get way, way higher when we get to politics. Slop is used for everything from kind of harmless memes, like a president imagined as a Jedi, to much more sinister stuff like fake AI photos of disaster victims being used to attack political opponents. And believe it or not, this has even crept into the world of academic science. Reputable journals have actually had to retract peer-reviewed papers because they included AI-generated images, like this infamous diagram of a rat with completely nonsensical anatomy. I mean, come on. That's a direct threat to how we build and share knowledge. It's serious stuff. Okay, I know that all sounds pretty bleak, but the fight is on. The platforms are not just sitting around and watching this happen.
So, let's take YouTube, for example. Not long ago, they rolled out a new inauthentic content policy specifically to fight this slop. That new policy is what led to them terminating those 7.45 million channels in one quarter. And then, soon after that, their CEO came right out and said that cutting down on slop was a top priority for the whole company.
So, while the big platforms are fighting this huge battle, we can all play a part, right? We can get smarter about this. Think of this next part as your own personal toolkit for spotting the slop out in the wild. So, the million-dollar question is, how can you actually tell what's made by a human and what's spit out by a machine? It is getting harder, no doubt, but there are still some major clues you can look for.
Okay, let's start with AI voices. They have a few dead giveaways. First, listen for a tone that's just too perfect. It's really consistent, kind of flat, with no real emotion behind it. Notice if there's a lack of natural breathing sounds or little pauses. The losses sometimes pronounce complex words in a really weird, robotic way or fall into these repetitive rhythms. Just remember, real human voices have little quirks and flaws. A lot of AI voices, they're just a little too perfect.
And what about spotting entire channels dedicated to the stuff? Here are 3 easy things to check. First, look at their upload schedule. Does it seem humanly impossible? You know, like they're putting out multiple high-quality videos every single day? That's a huge red flag. Second, look for repetitive templates. If every single video follows the exact same format and style, it's probably automated. And third, just analyze the content itself. Does it feel generic? Is there any personality, any real opinion, or any kind of story from a person? If the answer is no, you're probably looking at a slob channel. And all of this kind of leads to one last, pretty unsettling question. AI is getting better, and it's getting better incredibly fast. The signs we look for today to spot this stuff could be completely gone tomorrow. So, are we heading into a future where we just can't tell the difference anymore between what's real and what's slop? It's definitely something to think about.